Good morning, gang. Kevin here, Life22, and it is a beautiful Thursday morning. It is chilly outside. It's a little after 6 a.m. Just soaking it all in, you know. Starting to get up early. Been fighting the exhaustion, just tiredness, right? Like when your body's hydrating. It's like you ever see that dry sponge on your kitchen sink and it's just like super dry, like you could break it. And that's what that's the only way I can relate to like when you go sober. You don't realize how dry of a sponge you are because you creeped into that dryness, and then just imagine being that sponge, just sitting on, like, just being thrown into the water, right? But like you float on top for a minute, and then your body slowly starts to absorb all that water. And if that sponge could feel pain, well, then you could relate to what I'm going through. Just like a workout, man. It's worth it for better health and what have you. So, why my lower third's all the way over there? Bang. There, right. Problem solved. So anyways, gang, yesterday, I went on a bit of a rant, tirade. Maybe most of you probably thought, well, Kevin's really losing it, or, you know, Kevin's really extreme on this issue, or, you know, Kevin's having a bad day. Well, maybe. But I'd like to unpack some ideas, right? Because, like, the world is ever changing. You can't be, like, firm in every belief, in every thought, right? Like, I want to say 10 years ago, I was, like, loose in every topic. I didn't really have definitive answers. I didn't have, like, even, like, a footer set for some foundational ideas and beliefs. And I believe the great Matt Walsh has been talking about this recently, that like as us fathers get older and we become fathers for longer, we become more conservative in our values, and that's for some of us that's very true, and I've been finding more value and values in my life that I have to start hammering out and building these foundation walls. And I find that I'm building these foundations of thoughts and ideas, and having to do them more quickly, because as my kids get older, I need to be able to give them something, right? And if they look and dad lives in a cardboard box of beliefs, well, I mean, that's not going to bode well for them, because they're not going to know what a house looks like. And, you know, it's quite depressing. So I'm sitting here firmly trying to build a strong home, something that can weather most storms and ideas and debates and you know. But we're always under construction, so I think that that's something to always just kind of keep in mind, right? Like, the world is a complicated place, so to say that, like, you know, Kevin was firm in his beliefs and this is a strong, impermeable house, it's like, no, because somebody else is going to come along and find some other kind of mortar shell that can wipe out a wall of my existence, and I need to continually evolve, grow, maintain, and innovate with my ideas and beliefs as I start to make them stronger, harder, present them to the world, if that makes sense. And we've talked about this on the channel before too, where you have an idea and you preface it out to the world, and then you essentially put it into battle, right? Like you have a debate, a conversation. You write a letter to somebody, they retaliate back with their own return letter. You have a text message chain, whatever it is about your idea, it gets presented to the world, and other people try to puncture it and kill it. And they're doing you a favor so that you can present that idea to the world. And if the world cannot kill your idea, or just merely wounds it, and you can come back and harden its armor, and then you can represent it to the world. And the goal is so the idea survives and you do not. And when you do this enough times, that idea becomes closer and closer to a belief, something that you know that is true, like the scientific method, right? Like you present the world a hypothesis, and if it can be disproved, then it's flawed. If it surpasses time, then it becomes scientific law, right? And it's a very similar methodology here. So, the idea I want to unpack today, I used to be very libertarian in my thought processes when it comes to freedoms and rights and things like that, and I'm becoming more hardened. Some could say maybe less tolerant, but you can't be. That's like saying you can't. People don't want to discriminate. I don't want to be discriminatory. Well, like you have to be in the world. You have to be discriminatory to be anti-discriminatory. Like those people that hate. Like, well, by hating hate, you're already hating. See what I mean? Like there's no avoiding it, right? Like hate is a human thing. Like happiness is a human thing. Everyone tries to achieve happiness, but what if like people hated happiness, right? Like they were happy that happiness died. Like, well, you're portraying happy, right? You can't like extinguish something. It's always going to exist. It's a mode of human existence. So my one of go into discriminatory things. So like when you see somebody walking down the street and they're covered in sores and they look like they're a drug addict, and you have a disgust a disgust mechanism in you, and that is your body's survival mechanism. It's tell you like, I should be disgusted by this person because, they've got some kind of disease, or you know what I mean. They could cause me some harm. Maybe they have a knife. They try to rob me for their drug fix. I should be disgusted and try to keep distance from them. If your first instinct is to go kiss them, like your disgust mechanism is probably flawed to some degree. And so that's the purpose of it, right? But by not kissing that person, you are discriminating against them, right? Like you had to discriminate against a whole bunch of people before you found your significant other, right? Like you didn't like treat them poorly. You just didn't choose them, and that's discriminatory. That is the nature of discrimination, right? You're discriminating against that. If you're doing math and you do math correctly and you select the right answer, by you selecting the right answer, you discriminated against the wrong answer. That is what discrimination is. Such a vague term. So people just say, well, you can't discriminate, right? So, and so with having this mode 10 years ago of being very libertarian, I didn't want to, like, hey, you have the right to say something, and I'm willing to die for that right to say it. I can't, Voltaire, I believe, is coined for saying it, but it wasn't Voltaire. I remember going down this rabbit hole before. But with that saying, that was like a hearty philosophy that I lived by. And it's like, I don't have to agree with what you say, but I'm willing to die for the fact that you can say it. And I think that like grappling with the term of disagreement, I think is a thing that a lot of people have an issue with, right? But then some people are like, well, no, I disagree with that person, so they must be wrong. And then like they don't have the right to say it. And that's another concept that a lot of people have an issue with. So I'm kind of breaking down this kind of idea that what do you do about certain ideas, right? Like we have freedom of speech, and I'm breaking down this idea so that we can get to the same place together, right? So you have freedom of speech, and people are free to say whatever they want, right? The solution to bad speech is more speech, right? So even if somebody is freely speaking untruths or lying or fibbing or however you want to place it, they still have the right to say it. And then you get into a democracy, right? Which we're not a democracy, we're a republic. America has a republic if we so choose to keep it. But either way, we vote for representatives that change, modify laws on our behalf to represent our point of view, right? And to try to, what happens when a thought process, right? Like a bunch of people have a freedom of speech. Well, we all have freedom of speech, but a bunch of people in using their freedom of speech are promoting socialism, communism, right? And which is, not democracy, which is opposed to capitalism, which is opposed to a republic. But they use it to take over the democracy. So the democracy says that you can elect people to do whatever you want with your government, to change it. Like, okay, well, we want to change it this way, and we want to have, a hybrid between socialism and democracy, and we want to have this program and that program, or we want to sway towards more communistic type of views. Which the problem with communism, it always ends up being like a dictatorship or tyranny and tyrannical, and it's never been proven to function appropriately. China kind of makes it work because it is a tyranny, it is a dictatorship, but it ends up being, they call it the Republic of China because they do import capitalism, a hybrid method of capitalism, which is the only reason they're sustainable right now because, hey, capitalism and a republic, those are what you need. A democracy is an offshoot. We'll get into definitions later, I suppose, but they're proven to work. But here's where the thought process I'm trying to take you down today is, what do you do when 50% and growing of your population is saying we want communism or socialism, which is not democracy, right? Like which leads to tyranny and dictatorship. So what happens when they push for that? They say, well, we need all these social programs, and we need this, and we need to take care of the poor, and we need to not just take care of the poor. Like everybody should have, the government should run buses, and the government should run grocery stores, and what have you. I mean, this is you can see the trend, right? I'm not trying to strictly call out Zohran Mamdani, but from the mayoral candidate for New York City, but that is the trend that most younger generations are pushing for, and it's not in line with the American value system that caused us to be in a democracy with capitalism, a republic. You know what I mean? That's like we're picking the other side of the fence. Not me, but there are a lot of younger people that are being indoctrinated to thinking that it's acceptable. And so what happens when your democracy essentially overthrows itself? Right? What happens when your democracy says, like, well, we voted for a dictator. We voted for socialism. We voted for tyranny. We voted for communism. We voted to remove the republic. We voted to remove capitalism and only have social programs and give all of our money to the government and give all of our strengths and efforts and everything to the government. And you have a small portion of the population that's like, I didn't. I wanted a republic. I wanted a democracy. I wanted to be able to vote. Because at a certain point, when you vote for communism, communism doesn't give you the right to vote. You don't have choice in communism. You don't have a choice or a voice in a dictatorship or a tyrannical government. You just do what you're told or you're killed. So at what point it's like kind of it's I'm grappling with it, right? So you can see what I'm saying. Like, I want you to have free speech. Let's say you are the person that is pushing for, you believe socialism or communism is the answer, or utopia is going to work. It just hasn't been tried yet, and you need it to work. But people can't get angry when I don't sit idly by and watch and not debate. And you know what I mean? Like, everyone expects you to, like, well, it's their freedom of choice. It's their freedom of speech to be able to say that they want communism. But the problem is they're pushing it. They're indoctrinating my kids. They're infiltrating school districts. And then it's like, well, I mean, if they're doing it, why can't I fight back? Why can't I use my freedom of speech to fight back? Why can't we be in this constant Popeye and Bluto struggle? Because guess what? No offense, my argument is Popeye, right? Like, we might be in this struggle, this death grip that's going to choke us both out. But I would rather have the struggle and me win than me just lay over and die and let you take olive oil. Olive oil being the United States of America and my kids' freedom and future and whatever. Yeah, if I just sit idly by while you're promoting these things and voting in these people that are going to essentially just, at a certain point, their freedom of speech is going to remove their own freedom of speech. Like, let's follow this to its inevitable conclusion. If you take freedom of speech and you push and you use your representative form of government to push that you want communism, and you push and push and push, and there's no resistance, or there's minimal resistance that you can just snowplow through like it's just, a pile of snowflakes, I guess. And you're able to plow through your idea and you get it implemented into the government. Well, how do you implement communism in a democracy? Essentially, the democracy doesn't exist. So at a certain point, your freedom of speech disappears. At a certain point, your property rights disappear. At a certain point, your vote disappears because now you've... and I know there's a lot of people on the other side of the aisle that are going to say, well, we've already done that. Donald Trump is a dictator, and he's this and that. No, you're just emotionally immature, and you're butthurt that your pick lost the election. I was very sad when Joe Biden won. Like, that was terrible. And like, we've proven that it's terrible. And like, everyone's like, well, it wasn't so bad because it's not Donald Trump. It's like, well, you're just pointing at it as a person. Like, just because you don't like him as a person doesn't mean he's a bad leader. Like, Barack Obama was a bad leader. Like, oh, but he was intersectional, and he was the first African American president. Like, that's great, but that doesn't make him a great guy. He jailed reporters for speaking ill of him. Where's your freedom of speech there? Like, he sent people to jail for talking ill of him. Like, and that all gets washed over. Like, no one talks about that. Like, he was bombing other people without like Congress's consent. Acts of war. Like, oh, but that's fine. I don't know. It's just, it's one of those things that like, I want to grapple with this because like, people can't be, I guess like, if we just sit idly by and let people just keep voting our democracy away, then that's what's going to happen. And I guess I answered my own question, because if there is no other solution than me having a duty to use my free speech, my platform, my soapbox to stand on and holler from the mountaintops and fight, resist, to stop and educate people and stop people from voting our democracy into the sea. I see other Americans as tethering a millstone to the neck of democracy and the republic and just now pushing it out to sea. And I'm desperately clawing at the republic to try to pull it back and resist this push from everybody else to push it out into the sea. And so, yeah, I see it coming. I see the writing on the wall. It's not immediate. It's not here today. It may be here to my kid's lifetime. But it takes, what is it? Ronald Reagan said it. We were one generation from losing everything. One generation away from complete and utter failure, something along those lines. It's, I've gotten the gist of it. You need to be well educated. You need to understand. And you also have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to resist. You have to understand what your values are. You have to understand what your values mean to you. You have to bury your flag in the sand and say, here's my ground and I'm standing it. Come hell or high water. And so hey, thanks for helping me unpack this idea today. That was it. I really wanted to just kind of break down this idea that I had, and I don't know if it's apparent to everybody, but just the idea that like or the struggle that I'm having, that I want to respect everybody's freedom of speech, but at a certain point, like, I'm also, because the world is complicated, right? So, like, I can agree with your speech and I can die for the right for you to say it. But I'm also willing to fight and die to save our republic. And I don't know. I think it's one of those things. I haven't spoken much about the Charlie Kirk thing, but that's why it hits home for a lot of us. I didn't listen to Charlie every day. I listened to Charlie, like, he I would listen to some of his Turning Point events. I would listen to some of the speakers he did. I've heard a couple of his things, but I mean, I didn't get a chance to, I had friends that listened to him every day. And it hit them harder, but it hit me harder. It hit me just as hard as it hit a lot of other people, because it's like, it was eye-opening. It was like, what? I mean, I'm a podcaster, right? Like, am I going to be next? I mean, I guess I'm not as out there in the public and presenting my ideas to the opposing side as, because you can choose to tune out this. If I'm on your college campus, you really, I'm still making a presence. I still exist, and that irks people. And I don't have a problem with other people existing. I have a problem, then that's where my struggle is. Like, other people have a problem with my existence, and I don't. I have a problem with what they're saying. But fundamentally, I guess I had to get the idea out there and just present it out to the world. Like, I don't have a problem with their existence. I don't have a problem with any of that. I have a problem, I want to defend their right to say whatever it is the hell they want to say. The problem is, the more that they say that nonsense without a voice in the opposing direction, like on my side, without our opposing voice, then our idea dies, and their idea prevails, and their idea gets voted into office. And next thing you know, we have Zoran Mondamis everywhere across the country, and they just say, the government should be handling everything, and big government, and AOC, and, Bernie Sanders, socialist nonsense, and degradation of the family. And it's eye-opening, and it's a struggle, and it's a mental struggle, because sometimes you have to grapple back to the rules of the game, right? Like, we all have freedom of speech, and you got to go back there. Human life is important. Human life matters. Human life matters more than other lives, like the lives of, chipmunks and birds and fish, like we talked about yesterday. And other people will continue to throw their freedom of speech at us and try to erode our values. And when that doesn't work, they infiltrate school districts, and they erode the values of our kids. And then they erode the values of our churches, and they erode the values of what have you. I listened to a discussion yesterday on a podcast, and it was like, loneliness was a crisis. Somebody, I think it was Ben Shapiro, pointed out that loneliness was a public health epidemic, which is what one of the either Biden or Barack, HHS secretary said, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it was also kind of eye-opening that, hey, it might be a health crisis for people to be lonely, but that's not a problem that the government can solve. But there's a lot of people that are being ingrained from a young age that the government is supposed to solve all your problems, and that is an issue, and that is where the underlying issue in our battle begins, is the infiltration of different institutions, and we're doing a good job recently of dismantling them, but there's just a lot to say on this topic. Anyways, going back to the Charlie Kirk thing, I mean, that's why it hit home for a lot of us. And I haven't said much about it just because I'm still kind of grappling with it. I'm still kind of grieving, if you will. That's another reason why this Sober October is my last Sober October having to go into it, right? Because I'll be in it. I'm not drinking after this. I don't see the benefit. I no longer see the benefit. I used to see the benefit. I would see it as, I don't know, vice, it's It's a helpful crutch. The problem is that crutches aren't helpful. They can be when you immediately break your leg, but if you spend the rest of your life on that crutch, like you're a slave to the crutch. You're not a victim anymore. You're a slave, and you're not free. And so I guess I sought more freedom. I sought to be free. That's probably, that's what they killed Charlie for, was people seeking to be free and people promoting freedom of speech and people promoting dialogue and interjecting their ideas to the world to be slain. The ideas are being slain. Silence is not violence. Speech is not violence. A speech that kills your idea, that is not worthy, is not violence. It's violence towards the idea. If you embodied the idea, that's why you present ideas to the world. You present ideas to the world so that the ideas are killed and not you. My speech, it might be violent to your idea, but your idea is not human life. My speech is not violent towards human life, and vice versa. But when you blur the line and you don't have that distinction anymore, that is where you have the problem, right? Like once you say, no, my idea is me, and you're attacking my idea, so essentially you're attacking me, your speech is violence towards me and my existence, then you feel that it's appropriate in self-defense to kill me, then that's where the disconnect is. That's where the erosion of our institutions and our deconstruction of ideas and the human life actually matters and means more. That's where they're winning. They're winning on that. They're winning on that disintegrationism, the erosion of our institutions and our society. Go out, touch grass, go to church. That's where you solve your loneliness problem. Talk to members of your community. Talk to your neighbor. How many people talk to their neighbors anymore? Build relationships with your neighbors. Build relationships with your communities. Strengthen family values. Spend time with your spouse and your kids. I hope that most of you come to the same conclusion that I did. That Charlie's life was not for naught. Not for naught, is that? That's what we should all do. We're social creatures. We need to socialize. We need to have arguments. We can't consistently have arguments and become so divisive and so polarized and so argumentative all the time. We should still do that. We should have arguments. We should not be complacent with somebody else's speech that isn't correct. And you're not keeping them in check, because then when you don't slay their idea, when you spare their idea, when it's extremely flawed, they begin to embody it, and then they become more, they wrap themselves in their conviction of the idea, and their idea might be flawed, and now all of a sudden you're letting them live a lie, and then they go down a mental spiral where they're living this lie, and then when they get snapped into reality, that's something that some people can't live with. So it is good to have open debate. It is good to grow a pair and dissent with somebody. Dissent is healthy. Dissent all the time is not healthy. That's where we have the division in our country. But we need to have more conversation. The solution to bad speech is more speech. And with that, I will leave you guys today. Thank you for helping me unpack this idea, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on Life22.